What's going on? Video number 3. Here we are. You might hear humming in the background. Charging up the battery on the Bronco number 1. This video is going to be all about this thing. Get some love this time, because it is getting sold and it needs a couple little things. So in the beginning of the video, you'll see here, diagnosed some problems with the radio that I was having. And then I actually swapped the radio. I go ahead and just kind of forget about everything that I did in the first section. And then there's going to be a little bit about putting that spare tire rack on that you'll see maybe in this clip. And that's going to be it for part 1. I was going to compile it all into one video, but it was going to end up being well over an hour, and I didn't really want it to be that long. So part 1 is just going to be some boring stuff. Good information about radios and electronics, but nothing exciting. And then part 2 is where the fun stuff is. We're going to head out to Cow Mountain, go off-road this thing, and then we'll wash it up as clean as you see it right now. Who's excited to learn about how to diagnose a problem with the radio? Ooga booga, ooga booga, ooga booga, ooga booga. I need to get the radio working in this new Bronco that I got. I think I showed you maybe in another video. I got in the Bronco here, and the radio didn't work. So I pulled it out like it is. These are pretty simple. I don't know how the factory ones are, but when you have an aftermarket radio, generally it just pops. The dash bezel that's around it, this little brown piece, it just pops right out. I couldn't see anything wrong with it. So I'm going to kind of do a tutorial on how to diagnose problems with stereo systems. It's kind of my specialty to know stereo equipment. I got to go get the key. I'll be right back. This truck runs too well. I can hit the power. I don't know which one the power is here, but I can hit all these buttons and they don't seem to do anything. And I can even eject the radio off the thing here. All the connections look good. Clip it back in, still got nothing. So how do you start from scratch with this radio? So first things first, let me explain a little bit about this. So all these little weird connections here are called RCAs. They're really only used for amplifiers, because an amplifier wants really high quality audio signal, and so they use a very low voltage, high quality audio signal. Then you have these two. This is on a Pioneer radio too. Different types of radios are different. This specifically, I think it's a DEH X6700BS. I love this radio. I've had it for years. For Pioneers, you have RCAs, and you can't see the numbers, but I see R, L, and then these two are R for rear, right, and left. This is F, R, and L, so front, right, front, left, and then SW would be subwoofer, right, and left. Over here we have an aux and a mini aux, it looks like, called W/R for the full-sized aux, WR, and the small one is mic. So for calling, Bluetooth calling, because it's a Bluetooth radio, it will come with a microphone, and the microphone plugs into that little RCA there. Not little RCA, the little aux cord. I don't know what size it is, don't ask, I have no idea. It's just small, all right, it's small. And then the big one, WR, is wired remote, I believe is the words for that. And that is for steering wheel controls. Obviously I have a 91 Bronco. This thing doesn't have steering wheel controls, but in a more modern car you might. And that is a whole nother realm that is very complicated to program and make that all work. You kind of have to just look it up specifically for yours. But that is where it will plug in. There will be an aux jack on the back of your radio for Pioneers that is wired remote, and that is your steering wheel controls. Then this is really short. This radio has been in so many different cars, the wires have just gotten shorter over the years. But then you have the main power plug with a whole bunch of wires on it. We'll get to what they all mean here in a bit. Then 10 amp fuse, probably not going to start there, but you can. This weird almost round plug here. You can see the top side over here of the black is flat, so it only fits in one way. That is for Sirius XM. And then every radio will have something like this. This is the radio antenna. I don't have one, it's broken off as you can see, for FM, AM radios. And generally, depending on your car, you won't have this plug coming from your car. You'll have some oddball whatever, and you need to get an adapter from that plug to this, because all aftermarket radios, as far as I've seen, use this style connector. So they'll have this little round port here that you use for the radio, but not all cars have this coming out of the dash. Most cars will have something different than this, and you'll need to get an adapter from this to this. Usually not that expensive, usually not that hard to find. I have now unplugged everything from my radio. I'm gonna put that aside for now, because now we're gonna do some testing. So on this plug, you have a whole bunch of different wires. This one's actually pretty simple, really, now that I'm looking at it. Let's start with the basic necessities. You have red, yellow, and black. That is power, ground, and accessory, not in that order. Power and ground, so constant power and ground to keep, even when your key is off, those need power because all your presets for your radio or your Bluetooth memory, all that needs power to be able to be saved. And that is why you need constant power at this plug. Red is just the signal from the key, and that's why if you see it's a little bit smaller than the yellow, because it doesn't need much power. You don't need much power to tell the radio that the key's on and to turn on. So that's just the turn on lead for the radio. Then on the back side here, there's this blue with white. That is the turn on lead for the amp. So there's an output from this radio that is basically just a key on source, just like the red wire in this harness, but it's there to tell an amplifier or something else that your radio is on, and so it tells that piece to turn on as well for an amplifier, because you don't want it on all the time because it would draw a lot of power, and so you just turn it on when the radio's on. And then there's this orange with white. That orange with white is illumination. So when you go over here, you turn your headlights on. If that is hooked up and it is hooked up correctly, it will dim your radio, so at night your radio isn't blinding you. You don't need that at all. Now on this harness, there's a whole mess. A set of white wires, a set of gray wires, a set of purple wires, and back here there's a set of green wires. Those are your speaker wires. White, driver's door. Gray, passenger door. Green, driver's side rear, and purple, passenger side rear. The no black stripe wires are positive, and the black striped wires are negative. And so that is all that is in this harness, is just power wires for the doors, speakers, and power, ground, and accessory for the radio, a turn on lead out for an amplifier, and an illumination wire, and that is it. So all this mess that looks all complicated and stuff can really be boiled down to just some basic concepts. Some other cars will have different miscellaneous plugs you'll need to worry about, but for an old truck like this, that is all the basics you'll need to worry about. So now let's get into diagnosing a problem with them. I'm going to take my voltmeter, and now I'm going to test the constant and the ground here. So I'm going to poke that in, ground and power. I have 14 volts right there. I don't know if you guys can see that, but I have constant power at the radio. That's a good sign. Now let's test accessory, because I'm running it. And the accessory, uh-oh, we got 14 volts, which means that this radio should work. So let's plug it in again. I'm actually gonna pop it out of its case here. Let me show you. So these cases are clipped in to this thing. So they have a little lip around this side that holds it, and then you just bend these tabs out to hold it within the dash piece so they can hold something between there. And then the radio clips into these clips. And I'm just gonna stab it in there and bend that clip out a little bit. Do the same thing on the other side. Bend that clip out. Here, come on. bend that clip out, slide the radio out. So that's the only thing holding it in is those clips. So now I just have the bare radio here. I'm gonna plug it in again and see what happens. And I got nothing. I'm gonna unplug this plug again. Oh, wait, I gotta push the clip down. And I'm gonna pop this fuse out and see, oh, I can already see that that thing's cooked. Here, and well, just to be helpful here, I'm gonna show you something else. So I'm gonna click my voltmeter over to continuity. So if you don't know what that is, it's these three, it's like the Wi-Fi signal on there. It's just the Wi-Fi signal. It's basically just telling me that two pieces are connected. So if I touch these together, it beeps. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but it's beeping. And so if you go here to your fuse and you touch one side of it, and then you take your other one and touch the other side, it should beep. But you hear that I don't get any beep? That's a sign that you have a fuse bad. So I pull it out. Let's test it again just to make sure at the connections, because I have had it where it is weird. Nothing. So that is not continuous, which means there is a break in that circuit somewhere. These are not connected, and they should be. The idea is too much amperage getting drawn through this system blows this. And it's designed that if more than 10 amps goes through this, it heats up and burns up. And so sometimes they're a little bit more obvious, but here, I don't know if you can see that, that little loop is not connected anymore. Oh, that's even better, I think, right there. Yeah, look at that. That is not connected, which means she's cooked. Actually, literally, it cooked itself. I got it. All right, here, let me see if I can show that. If you see, the loop is connected in this one. So we got a good one. Here, and I'll show you guys the continuity trick with this one too. So if I touch that side, right there to one lead, I don't know if you can hear that, but it beeps. So this is good. So I'm gonna throw it back into the radio here. Let's throw the new one in. Make sure to get the right size, because there's plenty of different types of sizes of fuses. Then I'm gonna plug the power plug back into the radio here. Oh, it vibrated. And there it is, Pioneer. Set up. Just hit yes. You can set the time. Here, I'll do that real quick. Quit, yes. Cycle through, you got radio, aux, radio and aux. That's it. Here's the radio, but I have no antenna plugged in because it works perfectly fine if you just have that one plug-in. You just don't have radio or any of the other accessories. So now I'm gonna go onto my phone here. Just click, you could scroll through yes or no, but obviously if it's your phone, click yes. And now you're all good. I don't know if I have any royalty-free music, so I'm not gonna play anything, but it's all connected. So first things first, I gotta unplug the radio again. So personal preference, I guess you could put it in while it's all together. I like to put the dash bezel in first, but you got to make sure when you put these cage style in, and they aren't like a kit that screws to the radio, they're the cage style, that you bend these tabs back in a little bit. Not a crazy amount, but just enough to where it will grab something. Do it on both sides, push it in a little bit, so when the radio slides in, it grabs it. All I really need for this radio, because my antenna doesn't work, obviously, and I don't have a Bluetooth mic in it, even though this is a Bluetooth radio. I actually have a mic for it, I just haven't put it in yet. I'm going to just shove all the extra stuff behind the dash, and, you know, just for example's sake, I'm going to bring the antenna adapter, or the antenna wire through the kit. Then I snap it all back in, so it's all good to go, and I have these wires here. It's easier to try to push them through before you put the dash on rather than reaching through the kit to try to find them underneath there. Plug the power connector in, plug the antenna adapter in, plug whatever else you want to plug in, and then you make sure all the wires don't get pinched in between the radio or whatever, and you just shove it back there. And then you'll feel the radio kind of sit in there, so it's sitting but it's not all the way in, and you just push it until it clicks. Let's see if you can hear it. Push it, push it, push it. Sometimes it gets tight. Don't force it, and then you hear it click. Push, make sure both sides click in. It's in. And now usually your radio will come with this little trim piece doodad. It usually is not complicated. They just snap right in over it. All right, now wasn't that interesting? We all love that. Problems with radios solved. Went through that whole clip, not even looking at it and realizing it was just a blown fuse at the very end. Isn't that interesting? After all that, after filming it, after editing it, every time I did something with that clip, I realized I need to do a whole video describing how that stuff works. It's too much for just one clip and one video. So now it's on to some more interesting stuff. I'm going to just swap the radio over. Some more learning about radios. Just more of the same clip, but we're going to go from that Pioneer that I love so much, and we're going to take an Alpine that I got for free, and we're going to throw it in this truck. Still got Bluetooth and everything for anybody who wants to buy this thing, but it doesn't have all the tuning capabilities of the Pioneer, so I want to keep the Pioneer, and I'll give away the Alpine. Here we are. Got some stuff cleaned out, but I got what I need. A bag of miscellaneous crimp caps and belt connectors. And a set of, these are kind of cheap. I wouldn't get something like this, but this has wire strippers, wire crimpers, and wire cutters all in one. So that's my go-to. I got it for free, so that works. But let's start by pulling this radio out. Now my clips are pretty weak, but you get the idea. It just pops right out. Pull that out, and then just like we plugged it in, unplug everything. Now you get your radio out. I set this radio up as my computer speakers. So I hooked the radio up to a 12-volt inverter. You can see I just tied the positive and accessory together, so when the inverter came on, the radio came on. You can't hate on it if it works. So I'm just going to cut all these little ends off, at least the ones that I need. I don't need the illumination wire, which on this Alpine is just straight orange, whereas the Pioneer was orange with white. Alright, so now I'm just going to separate all the wires that I need out. So I need these front speaker wires, these white and gray. Rear speaker wires, purple and green. Positive, negative, accessory. And I'm going to take all these, cut them all to the same length. It's not a necessary step, but just for making everything look good. Then you need to strip them all. I like to leave like 3/8 of an inch, maybe a quarter would work. Half an inch is probably a bit too much, depending on the connector you're using, obviously, but let's, here, I have an idea. All right, that should be better. All right, back to it. All right, so it's kind of a mess, but as you can see, I got them all stripped, all the ones that I need at least. These ones you don't really have to care about unless you're putting an amplifier in, and then you want this, the remote. And you need that for an amplifier. Now, put that aside, and I gotta cut this out. So, one wire at a time. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna cut the black here. Snip. Now, here's one thing that I always do. Power ground and accessory, I always use a butt connector with 2 ends. So if you ever add something aftermarket, you could always have that other end to attach it into those 3 connectors, because power ground and accessory is what you use for pretty much everything. So if you're able to just hook up the 3 grounds, well, you're gonna have 2, unless you have something aftermarket like me, like the RGB controller. Twist them all together, put that over the top with a twist so it doesn't jam them up, crimp it. And now I have this end, so if I ever want to add something like anything, any little thing, a trigger for a light bar, I could just wire it right here. Most of the wires would come into the interior. Dude, the dash has everything you need to run a relay for anything. So if it's low power, you just run it off of these, and then if it ever stops working and the radio stops working, you already have it fused as the radio fuse in the fuse box. If you want to run a lot of power off of it, you would need a relay. And in the case of a relay, you have all the signal wires and everything you need for a relay already there. It's just really nice to add butt connectors, because then you don't have to go cutting all this stuff later when you need to add something. Oh, look, I even did it. from how I had it. Look, the ground was a butt connector. The accessory was a butt connector. So if I wanted to just get rid of this plug, I probably could have just hooked into these. Oh no, I used the other side for the RGB controller. So I'd already used up my one get out of jail free card. Then all you gotta do is just pull the radio out, crimp it into the connectors, the other end of the connectors. Alternatively, you would have to cut the connectors off, hope that the wires were long enough to support it and everything like that. No, you already have a connection there that just needs to be crimped together, and it's super nice. Because I have a smaller size, but I have a feeling that won't fit. We're gonna send it. It'll work. It's also good practice to just pull on all the wires, give them a good tug. Don't rip them out or anything, but give them a good little pull so that you know they aren't gonna fall out just from regular driving. We got all the power wires hooked up, power ground accessory there. So now if I plug the radio in and turn the key on, here, I'll prove it. Plug the radio in here, turn the key on. Oh, well, the whole radio's upside down. Turn the key on. You hear my fan and everything come on. Uh-oh, what happened? Oh wait, where's the power button? There it goes. There we go. Okay, that kind of freaks me out. It's an important lesson. Some radios, Pioneers do not do it this way. Apparently Alpines do. But when you first plug it in for the first time, you need to hit the power button to turn it on. It won't turn on automatically. Sometimes you have to hit the power button to turn them on. So people get them all connected just like I did, and you plug it in, hook it up, and it's like, why isn't it working? It's because you just have to turn it on. I feel like I've even seen someone take a radio back out and bring it up to the front and get a new one thinking that the radio was bad. You would expect it to be like that, but then you work in the industry for however long, and every other company just has them come on automatically when they get power, and you know, you just don't even realize it. It's caught me a couple times even, and it just did. You know, it's like, and I've been doing this for a while, so I need to replace this plug. The wires on it are getting a bit short, so maybe I'll see if I can find another one of these for when I put that Alpine or that Pioneer into something else. I don't even know where it's going in. Maybe in the Mustang. Maybe it'll go in the Mustang. That would be cool. I definitely want to put a nice system in that thing, and I'll try to do a whole video on it. What else have I done to that as an update for that car? Not much. I spent some time on it the other day. Oh yeah, getting it off the trailer. Well, you'll see that in another video. Oh my gosh. You're gonna think that I don't deserve that car after that. Yeah, if you guys see another video about the Mustang coming up, I'll probably clickbait it in the title, but yeah. Let me just say, if I do clickbait it in the title, don't just throw it away thinking it's clickbait. It's probably true. You gotta watch the video to see what I'm talking about, but Bodie did a dummy head. That's what he did. Now with these, like I was saying, you don't really need butt connectors on these, because who really cares? Like, you don't really have 4 speakers in your car and you're like, you know what? I want a second set of rear speakers. If you're gonna do that, you're just gonna hook them up with the speaker, because it's easier to just use the factory wire that runs back, and then just tee it off of the speaker to use in the back, you know? Wait, did I get the negative? I got the negative wrong, you see that? I did, and I caught myself. That's good. Okay, get that positive to positive. And if you do mess it up and you go positive to negative and negative to positive, I haven't heard the difference, actually. So what that means is that the speaker is out of phase. And instead of every, like, beat sort of thing, because you guys might know that sound is just a wave. And so the speaker flexes in and out to create that wave through the air so that your ears pick it up as sound that we would recognize. And if you invert the wires, then it just inverts the wave, and it actually makes it the negative wave. So if you just listen to that speaker alone, it actually sounds exactly the same. The only time that it changes is if you listen to it in a system that has all the other speakers hooked up normally. So like if you hook every speaker in your car out of phase, it won't have as much power because the speakers aren't as efficient out of phase, but it will sound just fine. The only difference is if one or more speakers is different than the rest, if there's any sort of difference in it, whether it's they're all out of phase and one of them's in phase, or if they're all in phase and one of them's out of phase, it doesn't matter. As long as one of them is different, it'll sound just a little bit off. And I can't really hear it. I don't think I've ever heard it, and I don't think I can really explain it, but the way it was explained to me was that it sounds like almost a little bit distorted and you lose bass. So one way you can tell is if you just don't seem to have any bass, because if you think about it, the wave, the sound wave, is inverted. And so I don't know if anybody here has done trigonometry and added like a cosine wave to a sine wave, and you know how it just makes a flat line. Well, that's exactly what happens, is you put an inverted sound wave over a regular sound wave, and it just kind of cancels itself out because the pressure is the same, if that makes any sense. Maybe I'm completely wrong and I don't even understand it correctly, so this is the best explanation you're going to get out of me. But alright, after all that rambling, I got it wired up and it looks good. So now let's see if it plays. Okay, that radio come on. Alpine, let's go. Source, disc, USB audio, Bluetooth audio. What's this Bluetooth called? This thing is Bluetooth, right? Yeah, it said Bluetooth audio. What the fuck am I saying? Alpine CD receiver. There it is. Scroll to say pair yes. Click yes. Connecting. So, let's go. And it works. It works. So now, let's mount this thing. And now, you'll get to see the problem. Alpine and Pioneer are competitors, and so their radios do not fit in each other's cages. Oh, so now that actually works perfectly fine. I take back everything I said. Plug that in, plug the antenna adapter in. It's in a different place on this radio. Get it to pop all the way in, snap, snap. Make sure it all snapped in, and you got a radio. Let's get to washing this thing, maybe. Oh, I don't want to wash it today. All right, you've suffered through long enough. Now it's on to the interesting stuff, kind of. Mostly time-lapse, but I had to install that spare tire rack there. As you'll see in the clip, I don't have the top on the Bronco because that night it started pouring down rain and I had to throw the top on it in a hurry. So no clip of doing that, but that's easy stuff. If somebody really wants to know how to do that, there's going to be way better videos out there than anything I'm going to make. Trust me. All right, well, it's time to install this spare tire rack on what I'm dubbing Bronco number 2. I'm going to screw all the bolts in to all the holes here. Make sure the threads are clear. Take them out. I already sprayed them down with some PB blasters, so just because I don't think I explained this well enough, I'll explain exactly what I was doing here. The bolts that I had for it, I would thread them in and out by hand, and then I'd switch to the impact, and I would impact them in, out, a whole bunch, until they were smooth enough to where my impact didn't have to impact to get the bolts all the way in and out. They ended up working out just fine, and it's still sticking on there perfectly well, so. All right. We got all the holes cleaned up. Now it's time to hang this thing. So you get to be along for the ride for this one. Now it's time for the clip. All right, we're gonna do the same thing with these. Just blast them. Probably hit the window a little bit, but it's not that big of a deal. I have a feeling this thing hasn't been on in over 10 years. Uh-oh. Fuel's dying. These M12 Milwaukees, really good, but these batteries just suck. The drills themselves are good, but the batteries, awful. Oh yeah. I don't know if we're gonna see that, but she's smoking. Yay! It does not latch. It works. I think that the little bump stop down there is too thick. So if I send it, it does clip. I also don't have a spare tire, so that's as far as it goes. Looks a little bit better now, doesn't it? I grabbed the whole tripod, so this is just super weird. All right, you made it through. I feel like every video gets like 10 minutes longer than the last one. Whatever it ends up being, I don't want to force cut anything, and I don't want to force add anything to make 10 minutes. So we're just gonna kind of go with the flow. I'm gonna try to not make anything way over 30 minutes. That just seems too long for me. So this is gonna be hopefully the longest video I make in the foreseeable future, but I hope you guys still enjoyed it, or at least learned something. It wasn't the most interesting video ever. It was informative, hopefully. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You know what we do around here. Again, back from the first video, you can hit that dislike button, but I don't, maybe as the editor I get to see a ratio, but I know you guys don't, so dislike it into oblivion. I do not care. I don't get enough views to care. As a little teaser, because this was part 1 and there will be a part 2, I might do it next Friday, might do it on the actual schedule that I'm setting for myself every other week. But I got a little teaser made for part 2, so roll that clip. We're gonna go have some fun today. Coming down into Lakeport here. Made it all the way up and over the mountains. See Canocti out there. Well, we had a little bit of a mishap today. We got a problem. Wow, that was some awesome clips right there. Some awesome stuff, exciting river crossings, trying to spin donuts in an open diff truck, big oopsies, crazy stuff going down in part 2, so stick around for that. Subscribe, hit that notification bell, hit the like button. Do what you do. Yeah. Have a nice day, everybody. I'm gonna go edit the rest of this video so I can post it up Friday morning and get you guys some content. Peace out. Damn, all in one shot. That was some good shit right there. Clip's probably the wrong way to say it. It's probably more of a scene, or a scene is probably the best word for it.